So, yeah. So last spot event with your, Are Madhura nahi ali rijal, spot event with your child and spot event in your life. So Madhura shared one event and I think it was a good event. आणि बाकीच्यांना मला माहित नाही काय होतंय, म्हणजे वेळ नाही मिळते हा एक कारण असू शकतं, किंवा you will perhaps you are not able to relate to that mirroring and all that. That is also because it's an initial struggle. Initially all this vocabulary stumps us and therefore it takes some time. But anyone has to say anything on the case which I reported? Because it was a real life case, and it is a case where mirroring was was done in a 1, 2, 3 sessions, like 3 separate sessions. One emotion was mirrored, and this is how it happens with our children. That is what I wanted to actually share with you.
Yes, sir. And the other day when Arna and Adiraj had some fight over some trivial matter, and
Okay.
she started screaming, and I just went like, "Rag alay tulla?" "Yes, mom, I'm very angry." I'm like, "Okay, I understand that you're angry." She's like, "Yes, mama, I feel like screaming." I'm like, okay. I just said okay because I didn't know what to say, how to what is supposed to be done. And there was this glass of water, and the pani piyachai. Then she had water and मला म्हणते, "ओ मी होता ओरडणार नाही, पण मला राग खूप आला होता मम्मा." And then she started playing.
अच्छा.
आणि नंतर सुप्रिया असंच काहीतरी झालं, and then Supriya was upset with Adiraj.
अच्छा.
And Arna is saying, she went to Supriya like, "I understand, तुला राग आलाय, don't be furious, you can drink water if you want."
अच्छा. Oh my god.
So I was just observing की काय करते, म्हणजे हे अर्णाचा राग आदल्या दिवशी होता आणि सुप्रियाचा was on second day.
I see.
But she understood की anger असं.
Yeah.
Easy to spot that emotion.
Yeah. Very. Yeah. And we somehow feel ki a child of 5, does not understand emotions, but actually they relate to emotions very quickly and very easily. I don't know how. मला सुद्धा ते कोड समजलेलं नाही आहे तसं, but I do it here constantly with children. I immediately see the results and I am surprised and shocked. So it's which means.
And sir, about fear also she was like की हा वाटते भीती, रडावं पण वाटतं, पण भीती असते ती काही नाही, ती निघून जाते मम्मा.
बापरे.
Then I could understand, हा okay, yes beta, you're right. I just said yes beta, you're right. मी अजून काय म्हणतात ना, जास्त काही बोलून ते हे तिचे कन्सेप्ट अजून हे करण्यापेक्षा
बरोबर. नाही, आणि हे जेव्हा मुलांचं when we see ना, then that time I realized, Trupti, ki this 90-second funda which these psychologists have discovered is probably true, because in our life it never happens. आपले इमोशन्स असे जातच नाहीत.
हो, म्हणजे तिचा राग पण शी वॉज फाईन आफ्टर दॅट. आणि भीतीचं पण जे तिने मला सांगितलं येऊन नंतर, हो असं रडावंसं वाटतं हे ते. आय वॉज लाईक येस बेटा, यू आर राईट. आय जस्ट सेड येस, हो असंच असतं. मला पण कधी अशी भीती वाटली ना, मी पण कसं मला वाटलं होतं रडण्यासारखं. तर मला ते नाही कळालं की मला पण वाटलं होतं असं जे मी म्हटले तिला. डिड आय काय म्हणतात, did I do something wrong by saying that it's okay to cry if you're or scream when you have fear असं?
No, you should see.
Because what has happened now, she has connected fear that you feel like crying and you're just forgetting things, and anger with drinking water.
अच्छा.
तर मग ते पण म्हणजे आय डोंट नो, तर जसं होता क्लास म्हणून मी तिला देऊन टाकलं पाणी, पण when it happened with Supriya, she like, हा तू पाणी पिऊ शकते राग आल्यावर. तर ते असं ती काहीतरी वेगळं आपले कोरिलेशन तीच बनवतेय. तर मग
हो, तीच नाही बनवू द्यायचे, ते त्यांचे बनवू द्यायचे त्यांना.
ओके.
we should not try to म्हणजे change them unless it is harmful or something, because see, they are trying to understand this emotion from different angles, so we have to give them different angles. सो म्हणजे मी पण असं बोललो ना की हिअर ऑल्सो आय टॉक फिअर. भीती वाटली की काय होतं, तुला काय होतं रे, मला आईची आठवण येते असं. मग दुसऱ्याला विचारलं भीती वाटली तर काय होतं, मला वन पर्सन मला उलटी झाल्यासारखं वाटतं. अरे बापरे, म्हटलं हो असं होतं का काका, होतं म्हटलं, उलटी झाल्यासारखं पण होतं. सो आय देन ऍड टू इट, आय सेड हा भीती वाटली ना की आपल्याला पाणी प्यायला पण वाटतं, पाणी प्यावंसं पण वाटतं. भीती वाटली ना की आपले, असं मी काय करतो त्याला मुद्दामून वेगवेगळे सिम्पटम्स सांगतो. आय कीप ऑन टेलिंग, सी भीती इज नॉट द इश्यू, इट इज अँझायटी. But now you cannot use anxiety word with them, and that is why we use bhiti as a word which they can relate to. So it is not technically the right word, I mean not right word. And as Arna grows, you might have to tell her ki this is called anxiety, and she will say, "Acha, this is not fear, this is anxiety." Oh,
आता पण सर शी इज अंडरस्टँडिंग, शी इज स्पॉटिंग हर इमोशन्स ऑल्सो, अँड शी कम, शी कम्युनिकेट. प्रिव्हियसली जेव्हा असं कधी व्हायचं, व्हेन शी यूज्ड टू बी अपसेट, वी यूज्ड टू टॉक इट आउट. दॅट वॉज आवर वे ऑफ डीलिंग विथ व्हॉट एव्हर शी इज फेसिंग असं. पण आता असं झालं की शी इज सेइंग इन डायरेक्ट, येस बेटा आय अंडरस्टँड, इट्स ओके, येस यू आर राईट, इट वॉज अँगर, यू वर स्कॅर्ड असं.
Okay, अच्छा, अच्छा. Yeah, which means she is relating now to those
Yes.
words also,
Yes.
See, these labels we think are not very helpful, but actually it is very helpful, these labels of emotions. Actually emotions and cognition चा असं relationship आहे की the labeling of emotion is somehow helpful. And there are various research papers on this की, because it is very confusing to psychologists की नुसतं लेबल लावल्याने कसं काय उपयोग होतो, पण होतो. So if the child starts asking you this is anger, you should say no, this is not anger, this is fear. असं ते लेबल नीट लावायला शिकवायचं त्यांना, म्हणजे आपण.
आधी मी तिला काहीतरी त्याच्याबद्दल एक्सप्लेन करायचे, पुढचं मागचं बोलायचे, असं कुठलाही इश्यू असला तरी. आता मी ऍटलीस्ट इमोशन्स बद्दल तसं नाही करत, फक्त येस यू आर राईट, आय अंडरस्टँड, या इट्स ओके, इट्स ओके, इट इज ओके इफ यू फील अँग्री और इफ यू फील अफ्रेड ऑफ एनीथिंग.
Yeah. So just this is a very good way of doing it. Continue like that only, No need of explanation. Slowly you will get to understand what to say and how to extend that, understanding. Slowly you will understand that.
आता म्हणजे मला जस्ट पाण्याचा ग्लास तुम्ही दिला, आय हॅड नो इंटेन्शन्स की आय वुड रिलेट इट विथ बीइंग अँग्री, पण मग ते तिने करून टाकलंय तिच्याच मनाने असं. तर some points I feel ki I'm not able to deal की आता पुढे काय, and where to stop exactly. तो थोडा मला इश्यू वाटतो म्हणजे with me.
नाही, एकच लक्षात ठेवायचं, मिररिंग ऑफ इमोशन इज लेबलिंग द इमोशन अँड टेलिंग द मिनिंग ऑफ दॅट इमोशन, बस एवढंच.
Yes.
Now the problem is because our child is 5 years old, telling the meaning of emotion is not easy because childचा कॉन्टेक्स्ट नीट आपल्याला समजत नाही, त्याची भाषा समजत नाही. So our attempt should be to explain that meaning in different words, that's all. Nothing more than that.
Okay.
No theory, no explanation, good or bad, no judgment, no positivity, no pointing of mistakes, nothing of that sort. So just focus on emotion. Just focus on emotion.
Yes.
Good. So let us today have this tough session of anxiety. So what is anxiety? Anxiety is really closely related to fear. So, but fear is a response to the current danger of snake or falling or whatever. It is a current danger which is directly in front of me at a present moment. While anxiety refers to the anticipation of that danger. Like we said about the ghost, you remember that case last time we did? Exactly like that. Ghost is a anxiety, Ghost is not fear because no one has a current fear असं कोणी ghost बघत नाही. So anticipation of that threat, anticipation of something that is going to happen to me, which is not good for me, is anxiety. So keep this distinction in your mind all the time. And there are two types of anxiety. one is called episodic anxiety. म्हणजे triggered by an event. म्हणजे I am not able, I am going to an exam or going to a test, that is episodic anxiety. It is anxiety related to that episode, that event of going to exam or going for a test or going for a drive and learning to drive when I'm learning to drive. So that is episodic anxiety. Persistent anxiety, which is generally called as secondary anxiety also, it is a general anxiety of what will happen to you. म्हणजे जसं आता suppose you mothers, when you go out and the child is anxious, that is generally a persistent anxiety. हा पण मग तू कधी येणार आहेस? When are you coming back? Till that time what should I do? Why are you going to the doctor? मग मी पण येऊ का तुझ्याबरोबर? All this is what she is trying to say, relate to is ki mama is not going to be there. That general feeling is not, I am not liking. I don't know what will happen when you are not there. Therefore, I am very concerned about it. That's all. So that is called persistent secondary anxiety. Okay, so let us look at these two anxieties in a bit. So for a child, a typical episodic primary anxieties are of three types. Generally academic, social, and an unexpected event like COVID or medical event of emergency. घरात काहीतरी accident झालाय, डॉक्टरला बोलवलंय, or जसं आता राजश्रीच्या घरी झालं असेल की her mother fell down. So these are events which cause a lot of changes in the house and it causes anxiety. So social anxiety is also a big anxiety for children. I don't know whether you have observed, some children will just not go in the public whenever they are strangers also. They are very reluctant and they face that. Some children face that. There is no clear-cut understanding of why it happens in child. There is a clear understanding of why it happens in our adult, but not in child. But I have also seen children where they express social anxiety very clearly. Okay, but the biggest anxiety you will observe is in academic. Academic म्हणजे शिकण्यासाठी काहीतरी. So in academic, episodic anxiety is huge. And you remember we talked. Sorry
to interrupt. मला एक डिफरन्स नाही कळलं अँक्झायटी आणि फिअरचं.
Fear is anticipatory. पुढे होणार आहे मला फ्युचर मध्ये काहीतरी. Sorry, anxiety is anticipatory. Sorry. Anxiety is anticipatory and fear is in the present.
Okay.
Like मला snake दिसला and I'm afraid. मला dog दिसला, I'm afraid. That is fear.
Okay.
But anxiety की आता मी बाहेर गेल्यावर तिथे डॉग असेल आणि तो मला भुंकेल आणि तो मला खाईल आणि X and Y, that is all anxiety.
Okay.
So
Yes.
okay, thanks for asking this question because हे पुढे गेल्यावर ना तुला डिफिकल्ट गेलं असतं कोरिलेट करायला.
Yes.
Yeah. So you remember in the first session we had this challenge zone. We said that child learns something, then he moves to the next challenge zone, then he moves to the next challenge zone, then he moves to the next challenge zone. This is what is learning is all about. So for a child, episodic anxiety is a constant anxiety. Constant म्हणजे का? कारण की आज I have learned arithmetic addition, tomorrow you are going to give me 2-digit addition, day after tomorrow you are going to be 3-digit addition, then you are going to give me subtraction, then you are going to be multiplication. So माझे challenges continuous असतात. So for a child, even though unlike us, you and me, where our learning are very, spaced and not so continuous. So episodic anxiety is very big for a child. It's something which you have to constantly remember because otherwise, आपल्याला काय वाटतं काय problem आहे? So we need to remind ourselves that he's constantly crossing his challenge zone and learning something new all the time. And therefore, anxiety and academic learning are highly linked to each other. And that is why they say it is very important to have an emotionally trained teacher. Because whenever a child is teaching something new, whenever a child is teaching something new, a teacher is teaching something new, then he is going to face anxiety. And therefore, you cannot avoid it. You cannot avoid it. And that is the reason they say ki a teacher should be emotionally trained. And this is a graph they draw to find, to help understand the relation between anxiety and performance. So when the anxiety is in control, your performance of the child improves. When anxiety goes much beyond that controllable limit, then the performance drops. So this you will find with every child. So when a child is not learning something, your assumption should be, I'm saying, that त्याची anxiety खूप वाढली आहे. त्याला भीती वाटते की it is well beyond his challenge zone. खूप वर गेलेलं आहे त्याच्या challenge zone. So he is worried ki I will not be able to perform, and therefore before performing only he is walking off. So that is how you should assume, which is happening right now, Vasundhara, with Ayansh, So for him, the anxiety of learning language is so high that he's just not wanting to connect with it. He's just walking away. So our job should be to help him remain in that anxiety, not run away from that anxiety, because that is an emotion he has to tackle to perform. So we have to help him tackle, perform. So we always say, whenever a child is feeling anxious, you send him to the school and he will sit here. He will sit here, not do that work, but he will constantly watch that work happening from far off. So that is why they say, this is a curve, they say, when he manage anxiety, performance is good. When he cannot, म्हणून there is a term which is used by psychologists, they call it good anxiety and bad anxiety. This is called good anxiety and this is called bad anxiety. Why good anxiety? Because the assumption here is that whenever you are doing a new activity, you should be anxious, because all your attention and your focus and everything gets concentrated on that particular activity, whether it is trying to drive, whether it's trying to cook, or whether it's trying to learn music. Your attentions are focusing because of anxiety, and that is good. That focus because of anxiety is good. And yes, when it goes beyond a particular level, it's dropped. Then you cannot manage it. Your attention, instead of getting focused, gets diverted, because now you want to run away. You are feeling that you are going to fail. So then this curve becomes important. So our job is to help him move into this and only move up to here. So it is easy to say that, but constantly the child, whenever he moves ahead, he will just walk off, and you have to understand that, accept that, and let him walk off. Not push him into that direction. So every child's performance, therefore, in academic learning almost entirely depends upon how he manages his anxiety. And that is how this academic learning and emotional learning are connected, very closely connected with each other. Fortunately,
so, sir, can we call good anxiety as a curiosity? Can we label it as a curiosity? This like
नाही तसं नाही म्हणता येणार दीपाली. We may not see curiosity, maybe आता मला हे काहीतरी दिसलंय आणि now he comes to me, मला करायचं का काय, that is the curiosity. Like you rightly said, every child loves to do anything. I mean, त्याला समजतच नाही की मला हे जमणार, So for him, every activity new is a challenge. Unlike us, you and me will look at that activity and मग बघू आणि करू का नको, केलं तर काय होईल, नाही जमलं तर काय होईल, हे असं सगळं त्यांचे काही कॅल्क्युलेशन नसतात. So that's why we say we have a friend who is helpful, because he wants to constantly shape situation. He constantly wants to engage with learning. So even if he has failed in the earlier job, he wants to do the next job, which is even more tougher than that. तुला असं काय वाटलं पण क्युरिओसिटी त्याला म्हणावं?
कारण की एन्झायटी असेल तेव्हाच आपण काहीतरी करायला बघतो ना, म्हणून दॅट्स व्हाय आय थॉट लाईक दॅट की जेव्हा क्युरिओसिटी असते तेव्हा तेवढं आपल्याला जास्त अट्रॅक्ट होतं.
ओके, तसं रिलेट केलं.
हा, ते एन्झायटी असते म्हणून असं मला वाटलं.
नाही, म्हणजे तू असं म्हणतेस की बिकॉज आय एम क्युरियस, आय वॉन्ट टू एंगेज इन अ न्यू ऍक्टिव्हिटी, असं ना, and because I engage in a new activity, I will develop anxiety, असं म्हणतेस ना तू?
हा
अच्छा,
बरोबर.
ओके ओके ओके. हा, मग ते हे कोरिलेशन बरोबर आहे. बिकॉज ऑफ क्युरिओसिटी आय एंगेज इन अ न्यू ऍक्टिव्हिटी, अँड बिकॉज आय एंगेज इन न्यू ऍक्टिव्हिटी आय डेव्हलप एन्झायटी बिकॉज इट इज जस्ट बियॉन्ड माय चॅलेंज झोन. या, ओके, देन इट इज कोरिलेटेड. बरोबर आहे.
ओके ओके.
Okay, so this is why, you know, see here, this curiosity, what you just now used the word, is a friend for us. That means a child, even if he finds it difficult, no, तो आपल्यासारखं खूप वेळ त्यात राहत नाही. सेकंडरी एन्झायटी डेव्हलप नाही होत त्याची पटकन. He will forget it and he will start something new. But episodic anxiety can become persistent because of avoidance. Okay, now what do you mean by avoidance situation? Because now you remember our system thinking reinforcing loop. So suppose you imagine you have an anxiety of public speaking. Why do you have an anxiety? Because you failed last time. So because you fail, you have an anxiety. So anxiety means you don't want to do public speaking. So you avoid it. Now problem is, because you avoid it, the anxiety further grows. Because you don't have the practice of public speaking at all. So the more I avoid public speaking, the more my anxiety increases. So hey, for vichitra reinforcing loop. That's why we always say, when a child is having anxiety of learning XYZ, please send him to the school. Why? Because he gets engaged here, he sees that activity, and he cannot avoid it. Because if he avoids it, his anxiety increases. And he public speaking मध्ये तुम्हाला फार, you will be able to connect it very quickly, you know. Or you, माझ्याकडे एक मुलगा होता, तो स्विमिंगला गेला, and unfortunately that swimming that coach, you know, he made him jump into the water, and you know what happens when a child jumps into the water without having to swim. He drank a lot of water and then he refused to go to the swimming. तो घाबरलाच होता, बिकॉज इट वॉज अ रिअल, म्हणजे पाणी पिलं असेल त्याने खूप, आणि तर घाबरला होता तो असं. सो मला दॅट द पर्सन, यु नो, हिज फादर सेड, आता काय करू सर, हा तर बिलकुल जायलाच तयार नाही आता. म्हटलं हो, असंच होणार आहे. दॅट इज हाऊ इट इज. बट युअर जॉब शुड बी टू टेक हिम टू द स्विमिंग पूल. पण म्हणे कसं न्यायचं त्याला? नाही, त्याला सांगायचं की यू विल नॉट स्विम, आय डोंट वॉन्ट यू टू स्विम. Just go there, watch there, sit there, and come back. And if one of his friend is doing swimming, nothing like that, he will come with you then. But please ensure that you should not push him into the water or something like that. He will one day overcome that anxiety. But if you avoid it, the anxiety increases. So you can use it for such scenarios like swimming. You can use it, you remember that Harish's case we talked about in the second session, where we said ki you should not point mistakes because his confidence drops. Now I am going to give you different reasoning. You should not point mistakes because when you point mistakes, his anxiety for doing that activity increases. And because you are not mirroring it, you are not mirroring anxiety. Now, because of increase of anxiety, he avoids challenging activities. So now this is a different loop. That loop which we talked in session 2 was of confidence, loss of confidence. Here we are talking about increase of anxiety because we are pointing mistakes again. So he becomes anxious. अरे बापरे, मी परत मिस्टेक करणार आहे. परत मला काका बाबा सांगतोय की आधीच मला वॉर्न करतोय की असं नको करू, असं कर, मागच्या वेळेस तू फसला होता ना, असं, you know. So mistake pointing is automatically increases anxiety. So that is one reason. Another reason, no, not one reason, second reason to avoid pointing mistakes. This you will also observe when someone is driving and you are helping him driving. This also happens when a child performs very beautifully one activity and you praise the child. And praising is called mapsing, because you are telling, you know, you are telling him the positive side of it and all that. And now what happens is, because you are praising him, he is avoiding challenging activities. Why? Because he knows he will not get the praise again now. Because he not knows, what is the word I should use? Because he knows कि this time मैंने तुक्का लगा के perform हो गया मेरा, next time होगा कि नहीं मुझे ही पता नहीं. So if my papa is praising me and next time I might miss, so he will not praise me. So now this is a very curious way of saying it is generating anxiety, but that is what happens. And now he doesn't take that activity. Because you are praising him very, very much. You are telling him he's a good boy. You are telling him he's an excellent, म्हणजे खूप हुशार आहे, genius आहे, असं आहे, तसं आहे. So praise also in a very indirect way, not very directly, increases the anxiety. So how to deal with persistent anxiety? Like I told you, the best way to deal with persistent anxiety is by stopping the avoidance. So anxiety of swimming can be avoided can be managed by taking him to swimming. Anxiety of public speaking can be managed by taking him to public speaking. आम्ही कसं करतो public speaking माहिती आहे का इथे? We sit like this in a circle and we say ki who wants to sing a song? So तो एक जण हात वर करतो. मग आम्ही त्याला म्हणतो you stand up and sing. मग तो माझ्याकडे बघतो. नाही काका मी खाली बसूनच म्हणणार. मी म्हटलं नाही now you have to stand up and म्हणायचं कारण की सगळ्यांना ऐकू आलं पाहिजे. Everyone should listen. You won't believe half the children just don't get up because that whole anxiety of I am going to stand up and everyone is going to look at me and I will stand singing the song and I will forget and he suddenly feels that and he stops. He says, "Nahi, मला नाही म्हणायचं." मम्मी म्हणतो okay. So I say okay, don't sing it. पण काय होतं त्यातले 5-6 मधले एक दोघं तरी बोलतात आणि मग त्या दोघांकडे सगळे बघत असतात आणि मग ते दुसऱ्या सेकंड टाइम थर्ड टाइम अटेम्प्ट मध्ये ते पण उभे राहतात. And then they manage their own anxiety of standing up, getting everyone looking at the attention. So, and they sing that first song, you won't believe, like this, असं खालीमान घालतात, असे पूर्ण खालीमान घालून म्हणत असतात. एकाही मुलाकडे तोंड करून बघत नाही, वर करून बघत नाही. That is how it is so anxious. I mean, even public speaking, त्याला आपण म्हणतो, is even in that small group of 10, you can see the anxiety there. And you have to always, therefore, you do it in a mirroring way. All this anxiety you have to tackle it. म्हणजे तो म्हटला ना की मला आठवत नाही काका. अच्छा नाही आठवत ना मग ठीक आहे ना उद्या कर.
Sir, Vasundhara might not get your Marathi.
Oh, sorry, Vasundhara. I'm very sorry, yaar. Vasundhara, you keep on pointing this to me, yeah? Yeah, don't worry. Absolutely don't worry. Mahesh does it. But you please, I'm sorry, very sorry. Okay. So what I'm trying to say here is whenever that anxiety is seen, help him experience it rather than avoid it. Kashala घाबरलायस? There's nothing to fear. Or if he starts singing and then he has forgotten, then you make some comment. विसरला कसा तू? मी तुला मदत करू का? काहीच नाही म्हणायचं. Yes, you just say, okay. अच्छा, you are not able to remember it today? It's okay. You can remember it and sing it tomorrow. Is it okay? So we just close the chapter there with a smile on our face, with no comment upon how fearful he has become, how stressful he has become. Okay. So my question is, when we try to deal with it, what do you think happens? म्हणजे मला काय म्हणायचं, with the child this exposure therapy works very beautifully, but have you tried this therapy with yourself? Has anyone tried it? म्हणजे for example, you are trying to do public speaking and you are worried about public speaking. So have you tried to go to a small group and talk with in a group of 5 and then talk in a group of 10 and then talk in a group of 15? Have you tried? Has anyone tried doing it? Nahi ka? Okay.
Sir, I have an experience. In
Oh.
my school, I used to be extremely fearful for म्हणजे छोटे छोटे स्पीचेस बनवून जायची but I never used to completely talk, or I used to be so fearful. तेव्हा माईक वगैरे नव्हते, त्यामुळे जोरात बोलावं लागायचं. मला बिलकुल बोलता यायचं नाही. मी सगळं पप्पा करून विसरून जायची.
अच्छा.
But when I was an adult आणि there was an event where I had to speak, somehow I could manage that. आणि when I spoke in front of say 15-20 people, uh, that gave me confidence actually.
अच्छा.
And though fear has
Now,
slightly
now that
reduced,
anxiety has reduced now. Okay.
reduced. So I think I can, but still I have that memories of my school
It
that
is.
I was not able
Yes,
to.
yes. And every time when we go to the stage, we have anxiety. Huh?
Yes.
Don't think की मला मी 10 भाषण दिले म्हणून 11th time I don't have anxiety. असं कधीच होत नाही. This anxiety is a anxiety of what will happen in the future. That anxiety emotion never goes off. But because I have a practice in 10 times, I can manage that anxiety. That's all. Okay.
So, पण ओव्हर टाइम इट हेल्प्स की म्हणजे आपल्याला ती सवय होऊन जाते.
बरोबर बरोबर.
जसं स्कूलमध्ये आम्हाला ना असेंब्ली लाईक 300 स्टुडंट्सच्या समोर न्यूज रिडिंग असायचं. द व्हेरी फर्स्ट टाइम वेन माय क्लास टीचर हॅड गिवन मी द टास्क की न्यूज रिडिंग, तर एक 5 न्यूज असतात त्या लिहून आणायच्या. फर्स्ट टाइम मला माहिती होतं मला बोलावं तर लागणारच आहे. गुड मॉर्निंग नंतर मी एक लांब श्वास घेतला. Sorry. After good morning, after wishing everyone good morning, I had a deep breath, and then without pause, even for a fraction of a second, I completed all the 5 news, and I just went off from the stage.
Okay.
Then I was lucky. I had a very good class teacher, and she was like, "Okay, fine. She's anxious." She could spot that, and in a week, every Tuesday or Wednesday, she used to give me the task. Now you have to do the news reading, Trupti. There is no other option. So ultimately, I knew I had no option. I have to read it. Over time, then like the pace improved. Then I knew where to take pause and how to explain the news. The first experience was like without a pause. Good morning. Tuck, 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 tuck. Thank you.
Yeah.
Without looking at anyone, just looking straight out of the assembly hall.
I see.
Trupti, that is exactly the same thing happened to me, and that is how I learned to manage. I do remember the first time I even remained absent, and it was my turn. It was just a 1-minute activity. Just because of that, I bunked the entire day.
I see.
But yeah, my teacher kept on giving me, actually reading. So it was nothing to memorize, and then
actually,
it was
my
not
class
even
teacher used to stay in the next apartment to our apartment, and she was very good friend with my mom. So I had no way to run away from her. From the situation.
No, and therefore, and therefore, overcoming anxiety at a young age is much more easier than at an old age. At our age.
Yes, that was in 5th and 6th standards.
Yeah, it's much easier to do it. Okay. Okay, so what are the feelings of anxiety? Feelings means expressions, the manifestation. So when I feel anxiety inside me, how do I express it? So there is an inside body expression. I will feel pain on the shoulder. I will have some body urge, like for example, I will have a feeling of wanting to eat something, drink water. I will have we are going to talk about information and mental urges, control urges later, so that I am not going to talk. Or I will have action urges like anger or restlessness, or scrambled mind. My mind will be out of focus completely during that period of anxiety. And the biggest problem is anxiety generates a lot of secondary emotions, which then go out of my hand and out of my control. And we call this stressed. This is called stressed. So stress is a word used for anxiety. Okay. Now to understand what is anxiety and what is stress, let us understand a bit about how is this anxiety generated. Okay. So this is our second item on the agenda. So anxiety is generated because there are some events happening in our life which are predictable and unpredictable. And we can either control these events, controllable or uncontrollable. So y-axis is control, x-axis is predictable and unpredictable event. So imagine these are the 4 quadrants, So let us look at this situation now. So Q1 quadrant is controllable. The event is predictable. Something happening in my house, and I can control it. म्हणजे माझा मुलगा खातोय, जेवण करतोय, and I can control it. So what happens in your house is a Q1 quadrant, predictable and controllable. Q2, maid calls you to tell you that she's not going to come tomorrow. So unpredictability of the there is unpredictability, but still it is controllable because she has given you a lot of time to readjust yourself. In a organizational situation also this happens a lot. So I have not taken that example here because organizational situations are different. But people like Pranav and they can relate to their organizational situation also, I'm sure. Uncontrollable is maid calls you in the morning of that day that she is not coming. Manje ata you are on Monday, so this is like Q2 is like calling on Sunday that she is not coming on Monday morning. And Q3 event is now calling in the morning at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock and telling that she is not coming. So maid calls in the morning that she is not coming. So this is uncontrollable and unpredictable. Predictable means you are getting some amount of time to adjust with it. And this is the worst of the event. Maid just does not come in the morning without notice. And you keep on waiting, you keep on looking at your watch, you are cooking, you are doing things, you are getting your child prepared, and you are getting your, you are boiling inside because she is not coming. The time has passed. Now you don't know whether you should call. All these things are happening. So if you look at this 4 quadrants, and if I ask you, which quadrant event is the most stressful? I'm sure, there is nothing to stress your imagination. You will immediately say, this is obviously Q4 is very stressful and Q1 is the least stressful because it is controllable and predictable, and Q4 is the uncontrollable and unpredictable. So this is how most anxiety is generated. I am using a wrong word here. I should have said here most anxious, most anxiety creating quadrant is this. Okay. So now the question is, out of the two, which axis causes more anxiety? Which axis means control axis or event axis? Which axis causes more anxiety? So as you would realize, the axis which
x-axis,
not x-axis, y-axis causes more. That means what we are saying, even if the event is unpredictable, but if I have some control on it, I feel less anxious.
okay.
So that is the assumption here, clearly. If I have more control on it, but if I have less control on it, even if it is predictable, for me, it is creating a lot more anxiety. So the important factor here is more of control I want. Okay. But naturally your question can also be, but sir, to get more control, I should understand the event better, no? To make an unpredictable event predictable, I should understand the event better. He made nehmi Mandela dandi marte. So now I have some kind of a predictable pattern now, which I can use and say, okay, that means I should get ready on Monday. So this is also one way of saying I convert unpredictable into predictable event by seeing the pattern and making it more controllable. Because now I can plan on Sunday only ki kal kuch karna nahi hai naya. So out of the x and y axis, y axis is supposed to be causing more problem. So let us take an example of how this anxiety works in our mind. So imagine that you are traveling to a new location, which is very offbeat, not a Thailand kind of a location or somewhere people don't go as a kaitari. So which quadrant does it belong? Naturally, Q4. So because you don't know this location, it is completely unpredictable. मला काहीच माहित नाही Thailand बद्दल. I don't know what to do. So I don't know control also. The hotels ka hai, what is the language they are using, and all those questions I have now. What is the currency person? I have questions. So travel to a new situation is like a Q4 quadrant anxiety generator. So what do we do? So immediately I will tell Pranav, oh, आपको अपने को Thailand जाना है. Pranav will say, yeah, don't worry. He and I, we both of us will start, bring it to the Q2 quadrant. Bring it to Q2 quadrant, we want more control on it. So what will he do and what will I do? We both of us will start finding information. So we will say, what happens if I lose the connecting flight? पहले वो find कर लिया, Thailand का direct flight नहीं है. So from here we have to go to Myanmar, and फिर Myanmar से दूसरी flight लेनी पड़ेगी, or whatever. So let us find out that what is the scenario of flights there. What happens if no one from the hotel comes to us? We talk to friends, we visit Google sites, we understand the Thailand currency, we understand the Thailand hotels, all that thing we start understanding. What is our purpose? Our purpose is to move this from this quadrant to this quadrant. And a lot of people help us. Not only our friends, even the travel fellow, travel companies, they are specializing in this. He will give you a big information booklet about Thailand, and then I will know, acha, Thailand ki ye location achhe hai. So, in other words, whatever I do, but yet, kitna bhi information, how much of information I try to get, I will not be able to convert this red to green, all red to all green. There will be something, because I cannot control all the aspects of travel. So there will be something remaining in red and something remaining in green. So कितना भी information मैंने जमा किया, कितना भी Google से, दोस्तों से, travel वालों से, there will be something that is remaining, which is called as residual. This is called residual anxiety, because why it is residual anxiety? Because this is a part of an event which I cannot control. So that uncontrollable part of the event creates the residual anxiety. So you are with me until now? So I will move to the how is this getting now formed? Okay. So does this small anxiety matter? Here is a residual anxiety asте. Does it matter to us? It matters to us or doesn't matter to us depending upon our absorption capacity. So new term has been introduced. Absorption capacity. What is absorption capacity? So absorption capacity is the ability to live with the uncontrollable events in our life without getting disturbed. For a child, she wants everything and everything just now. So when she wants ice cream, she wants just now. So child's absorption capacity is supposed to be almost zero. I mean, not really zero, almost zero, let us say it. But as we become adult, we start understanding ice cream milta nahi hai 10 baje. So, we start understanding what are the things which are in our control, what are the things which are not in our control. We get a better picture of it as we mature. And our absorption capacity increases to, let us say, 50 points. Now I can absorb the uncontrollable aspects of my life to a better extent than a child can absorb. So when do we feel stressed? So the question now I will ask you. So when do we feel stressed now? See, I'm now asking a different question. Earlier I was saying, when do we feel anxious? Now I am saying, when do we feel stressed? So psychologists say we feel stress when uncontrollable events are less than absorption capacity, we just feel irritated, not stressed. So आपली absorption capacity higher है, पण uncontrollable elements कमी आहेत. So I feel I get irritated. I'm, like I'm going to Thailand every day. I'm thinking about it, and it is irritating me, but not troubling me to a large extent. But if uncontrollable events in my life are much higher than my absorption capacity, then I am stressed. Okay, so now body has to do something about this. Our body has to react to this uncertain elements in my life. कुछ तो भी होने वाला है मेरे लाइफ में और मुझे पता नहीं है. So I will, like a tiger who is going to be hunted, I will start darting, looking at different eyes like this. I will worry about it. I will go onto the computer and find out ये क्या हो रहा है, वो क्या हो रहा है. जैसे कोविड में हुआ था. I don't know whether you remember this. When COVID lockdown was announced, we all of us were, were hooked onto the TV. क्या है ये? What is COVID? कितने लोगों को हुआ है? क्यों? Does a person die? और कैसे पहचानने का? How can you have COVID just by touching like this? So don't touch, don't do this, don't. So that time we were like tigers who are being hunted, So because it was uncontrollable elements were hugely higher than our absorption capacity. So we are stressed when uncontrollable events in our life grow beyond our absorption capacity. So that's the simple concept. So remember this red, green is our absorption capacity, red is our elements in our life which increase or decrease. Okay. So, but while we are planning for the travel, for example, I'm planning for Thailand travel. I mean, I'm not just sitting in the house and planning for travel. No, I'm also going to the office. I'm also dropping my child to the school. I'm taking his or her homework. So there unpredictable events are happening in a normal day. And वो होते ही रहते हैं. So for example, maid not coming. So suddenly uncontrollable events, the Q4 वाला event हो गया, not coming इधर तक आ गया. Uncontrollable elements in my life increased to this extent. I had to do something to adjust it. So I managed to somehow to manage it. पूरा निकल नहीं गया, थोड़ा सा manage हो गया. But no sooner I was trying to manage that maid, something else happened. My child came to me and said, Mama, कल का homework रह गया. Oh God. Again, this uncontrollable element again increased now. Bagu, where is your homework? Show me your book. And then you start looking at the book. Then you call your husband, call someone and say, okay, or you see this, I will look at the homework. Or you tell your husband to look at the homework. Again, that element decreases, uncontrollable element decreases. So you somehow manage to control it, थोड़ा सा कमी करून अजून control करायचं. Then you come out of the house and you see the tire puncture. अरे बाप रे, now I have to go to the clinic and now tire is puncture. अभी मर गए. Now I was going there and banking on going there in 10 minutes. This tire puncture means वो आदमी आएगा and then he will puncture, remove the puncture, and now I'm going to waste. I have to go by auto now, do something about it. Okay. Again, I will do something about it and reduce the uncontrollable. So slowly this event, uncontrollable events increase in my life, here, then here, then here, and it becomes this much. And this has happened in just 30 minutes. 30 minutes, I'm imagining you started this maid not coming event from 8 o'clock and 8:30 lies something. Tire puncture and I have to go to the clinic. So this is how it will typically happen. I'm just saying. Okay. How will you react now? So at this time, when something is happening like this, how will you react? So your reactions will be, are that some other, I'm saying now, how will you react in that half hour? You will have some body expression like shoulder pain or something. you will have some urge to eat or drink or do something. I mean, do something which is it is called urge in a language of psychology. You will have an action urges like anger, like you will hit your child because why didn't you not tell me yesterday that your homework is not over? You might even hit him. Your scrambled mind will blame the last event. You will forget maid not coming. You will forget homework not done. But what is the last event? Oh, tire puncture ho gaya. Yesterday I had told you कि ये tire में हवा गई थी. So you will blame the last event. And if the last event is your son not done homework, so you will blame your son for everything that has happened in those 30 minutes. Because your mind is scrambled. And it will generate a lot of secondary emotions. Like yesterday we were talking about that event. So suppose you will remember your mama, you had called your mama, and mama said, "Kya baat kar rahe ho yaar? You only have a child or what? I had 3 children." And so all these secondary emotions also will be generated at that time. Am I adequate? Am I not good enough? All those yesterday which we talked about in that case of anxiety. So this together is called stress. So this is happening in your everyday life. Okay. Now let us see. But after an hour or two, what happens? All these events are managed. Maid ka problem nikal gaya. I am in the clinic. Homework ka problem I have somehow tackled. My son is in the school. Tire puncture problem. I have called the tire puncture fellow. He is going home and repairing the tire. So now my uncontrollable events have dropped down to this level. So residual anxiety ekdam kami zali hai. Now I am in a better shape to respond. So my mental state badlun jate. At 8:30 my mental state was very hyper. At 10:30 or 9:30 I am in a better shape to respond to situation, to respond to my different calls, whatever. And this is how typically our day goes up and down. But now the new cycle starts. Now this is where see, because our life is not stopping, no. So something new is going to happen after 10:30. So now, what are the unpleasant triggers that increase the uncontrollables in our life? So, for example, the biggest uncontrollable are unpleasant home conditions, like dominating father who is constantly instructing you. So I'm calling it in one word, unpleasant home conditions. Unlucky home conditions, such as a death in your family that has happened. When someone family dies, an important person, it leaves behind a residual anxiety of a very high extent. And I know some of the participants here, they have lost their husbands, and for them, the death has created an anxiety level to such an high level that it is not easy to get rid of. Okay. Or you have a disadvantaged child. I'm talking from my experience. My sister had a child who was, what is the word I used? Disadvantaged. She was not able to take care of herself. My sister had to do everything for her. And the whole house is different when you have a disadvantaged child. Or a bedridden patient, especially if you have a person, as the Rajasri Bulli, her mother has fallen down and now she's going to be in the bed for 1 month. Imagine a bedridden, in your house you have a bedridden patient for 1 year or 2 years. The house is completely different. The uncontrollables in the house are too high. Anxiety is too much. Or unpleasant personal triggers. Like you'll be surprised, Triggers like color of the skin also matters a lot. मला लहानपणीपासून काळा म्हटलं गेलेलं आहे. This matters a lot. Mala, from my childhood, I was called fat, or I was less educated in my family. My entire family, everyone became graduate, but I had to pass in 12th and I had to leave my education. So all these personal triggers also increase our anxiety constantly, increase our anxiety. And the last is unpleasant professional triggers of work. Like last time we talked about sports. Sports is the highly anxiety provoking work, because one day you perform, next day you don't perform, you are back to square one. Doctors like Trupti and all of you meet a patient and you cannot satisfy the patient or to cure the patient to his satisfaction. You are constantly on or Sachin Gavadenna तर जास्त problem है, because it is a heart related thing, means directly related to life and death. Police, if you are having a police job or if you are having a government official job like Ujjwal sir, because these jobs are highly stressful jobs, constant, the anxieties levels are very high, uncontrollables are very high in these jobs, and you constantly feel you are helpless, to control all this. So when all these are happening, and if you are fallen into one of these four categories, then this is what your natural curve will be. Your uncontrollables will always be much higher than your absorption capacity. Now, they will come down by the end of the day or something like that. But again and again, they will keep on increasing because of these unpleasant four conditions. Especially these professional triggers are very difficult to handle because they are part of your job. Like, doctors, I feel. So, in other words, when uncontrollable remain very high like this for a long period of time, psychologists call it anxiety neurosis. For a long period of time, they say it. And what happens when you are facing such situation? You feel constantly, you are confused. You do not understand the cycle of stress. You don't understand what is happening to you. Every day stress क्यों होता है इतना ज़्यादा? Every day I know I go, it is my job, Baba. I have to work as a doctor. So why am I not becoming competent to handle my patients? But that is not the issue, no? Like Ujjwal sir works in government. Every day he must be facing unpleasant demands from bosses, from people whom he is not connected with. But every day he has to face it, and every day he manages it, but still has to go through the same cycle again and again and again and again. So it generates huge amount of inadequacy. What wrong now is going to happen to me in my life? And they make us fall into two traps. We call it control trap or information trap. We will see later what it is. And what do you do? Anxiety, imagine I am like this person, sitting where anxiety level has increased. So I tend to express my anxiety at easy to control places where at home, with my children, with my subordinates, with people with whom I have power. So people like drivers, people like security people, I will shout at them. People, basically people whom I can shout and get away with, when my anxiety levels are very high. And this will cause more damaging consequences because of my behavior like this. It will further increase my anxiety. म्हणजे now I will start saying की अच्छा माझे पोरं पण माझ्या बरोबर नीट वागत नाही, माझे बायको पण नीट वागत नाही, माझे सबऑर्डिनेट्स पण माझ्या उलट्या बरोबर वागतात. The biggest problem of anxiety is this. Anxiety goes with inadequacy all the time. Moment I have anxiety, it is married with inadequacy. I start feeling bad about myself. In fact, one of the best ways to spot your anxiety is to spot the feelings of inadequacy. ज्या क्षणी तुम्हाला वाटेल, जब तुमको लगेगा कि मुझे ऐसे लगने लगेगा है कि मेरा क्या हो रहा है, मैं इतना बुरा हूं क्या, मेरे को ये आता ही नहीं क्या, मेरे को बच्चों को संभालने भी नहीं आता है क्या, मेरे को ये नहीं आता है क्या, मेरे को वो नहीं आता है क्या, you should directly assume that the anxiety is the trigger, not inadequacy. And biggest problem of anxiety is when it becomes very high, at a high level, then it drives all other feelings, all other emotions which we talked about. Disappointment, shame, jealousy, सगळ्यांना drive करतात ते. And then we are in a constantly not knowing what is happening to us. Any comment? Okay, up to here.
So can you show the previous flowchart?
कुठला हा?
हाँ.
So we do understand that emotions and then how to validate our emotions, because many times we are not able to validate as an anxiety.
Now we'll look at how to regulate the anxiety. Now, next step.
Okay.
We'll now spend time on understanding if this is how anxiety is created, because uncertainty of future is there, unpredictability of the events are there, and I cannot control them. So which means what? I should either have more information about the events or I should have more control over the events. So how to get those controls is what we will now look at it.
Okay. And so like for us, we know that we can interpret, but with kids, when we don't have the entire information, what has happened and background of the situation and how
Correct.
to cope with it.
Correct. Yes, you're right. Yeah. And we don't even have information about ki त्याला emotions एवढा महत्वाचा आहे. So we focus on wrong things. In the sense ki when the child comes to us and says ki I cannot do this, for example 1 to 10, or cannot do this ABCD, you focus on ABCD. The problem is not ABCD at all.
Yes.
So that is also creating problem for our child. So now let us understand how to regulate anxiety. So 4 steps are required to managing that. The first is the most difficult one, spotting your anxiety. Spot your body discomfort, spot your blaming, spot your negative train of emotions. Because the problem with anxiety is, तो समजत नाही ते आपल्याला होत आहे. Like for example, when I have an anxiety, I poke my finger in my nose. असं असं करत असतं. So the only way I could control was, I told Mahesh की जेव्हा मी असं करेल ना बाबा मला सांग. Because we are there for a long period of time. So he used to point out to me that you are anxious now. So see the difficult part of spotting anxiety. So anxiety is therefore can be spotted by people around us, by our near and close people, friends, by our husband, by our wife, by our friend. And what do? We do some body आपले urges असतात आपले, काहीतरी आपण मोबाईल खेळत असू किंवा फोन करायला बसू किंवा कॉम्प्युटर वरती बसू किंवा I will start shouting, I will start blaming someone, I will have a negative train of emotion. So doctors have found a very easy way of what is the word? Spotting anxiety. They say that when the anxiety increases, your heart rate increases by more than 10%. That means your normal heart rate is 72, it will go beyond 78 or 79. So what nowadays they have started doing is, they say that you take the stress monitor and घड्याळ तुमच्या, put it on your wrist, and you can now put a the indicator there at 79. So if it goes to 79, it will give a beep sound. So this is one very good and very effective way of spotting anxiety, because heart rate doesn't fool. That immediately tells you ki kaitari zalelay. And then you have to look around and say, why? What happened? Why am I anxious? So nowadays you get these watches also, they say. So if you want to try it out, many people have tried it. It works very beautifully in corporate atmosphere, surprisingly. Because in corporate, when you are moving and working in the office, your anxiety levels are constantly fluctuating up and down. So it is a very good way of telling yourself when are you stressed and where are you not stressed. Okay. And as I said, these are the 5 things you have to remember. These are the 5 ways by which you can spot your feelings of anxiety. Body expression, but it takes some time. It will not happen. You will, like Mahesh found out after a long period of time that when he's anxious, his ankle starts paining. His ankle starts paining. But this has happened over. He has been monitoring it for a long period of time, and he even went through a period where. Mahesh, you want to talk about it? Where you went to ECG?
Yeah. There was a death in my family. My sister's husband actually died in a sudden cardiac arrest. So we know how sudden that death, such death is. So after that death, for at least almost close to a year, every month, at least once or twice, I used to, wake up at night, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, call Sanjeev sir that something is happening to me. And he used to then take me to the hospital, getting ECGs and everything done. Everything was normal, but the same thing again will happen after a few weeks. Later, I used to go alone myself, driving. But even after, repeating this many a time, I could not, deal with it. I had to rush to the hospital because the feeling was so real that, my heart rate is increasing, chest is paining. So all real feelings. So then now I realize that, how this, what you can say, how this anxiety creates a real feeling inside us. And it was like close to a year I was going through that. And then I realized many people who face this death go through such event, and especially if the death is so sudden. My sister was also, because of the same death, she was also going through. So she had a habit of eating something so much, this chili. Chili means not chili, chutney. She used to eat chutney like poha.
Oh, okay.
So, and again, after chutney it was body soap, and then after body soap it was something else. But she went through a lot of such anxiety attacks. So
yeah. One of the easiest way of spotting anxiety is when you start blaming yourself. So if you start blaming yourself for everything, मैं बुरा हूँ, मेरा अच्छा नहीं है, am I so bad? ये भी नहीं आता कि मेरे को इतना सा. I can't manage even my time. My mother never had this problem. Only I have a problem. My friends, वो तो बहुत खुश है. उनको तो कुछ समझता नहीं. उनको कुछ भी नहीं हो रहा है. मुझे क्यों हो रहा है अकेले? So all this inadequacy जो trigger रहता है, we should directly assume that it is related to anxiety. I'm saying assume, but I tell you 90% of the time that assumption is right. So if someone, especially with men, Sachin
Yes,
sir.
I just to add one point. What we are talking that for bodily sensations and all. The most important thing about anxiety is it is always accompanied by autonomic symptoms. We label it as autonomous because they are not under our control. It's due to because of catecholamines and other release of hormones in the body. So
Acha.
generally accompanied by tachycardia, that is increase in heart rate, sweating. So we
Acha.
label palpitation, sweating, and irregular respiration. Our respiration is going to change at that time.
Yes, very good. Correct. Very good.
So rather than going for gross things like what you were talking, की नाकामध्ये बोट घालणं किंवा ankle pain, त्यापेक्षा if you just observe your heart rate, respiration,
I
and
see.
whether I am getting sweating, it will give a direct indication that you are getting anxious about something.
Okay.
Why I am able to relate is this: I am really having anxiety neurosis, which you all know in detail about it. Because every patient is like challenge for us. And as we are saying, is like death sentence. We are having every patient, and even 1 ml of air, if we inject by mistake also in the coronary, patient is going to die. So if our operation is successful, patient is going to live, otherwise he is going to die. So it's like very, very stressful every time. And if anything, almost 101% time it is unintentional. We are not going to do injustice to the patient. We will try our best only. But even after that, once patient got sinking, maybe because of that myocardial dysfunction, heart is already weak. So even after doing angioplasty, sometimes patient collapse in front of us.
Yeah.
At the same time, my heart rate from 78 goes to 110. So it's very easy to pick that I am getting anxious.
I see.
And what about this fear and anxiety? It is always like a real anxiety. Many of the times, whenever I took patient and took needle in my hand to do an angioplasty, first thought comes to my mind is, if anything bad happens to the patient, what will be the consequences? So from social, financial, political, we are getting thousands of calls from this MLA, that MLA. So a simple procedure can turn out to be a big disaster. And sometimes even a complex procedure, like if a patient is not known to anyone from poor background, even if I am doing complex angioplasty, I'll be at my ease. I'll be doing that operation with heart rate of 72. So it will be a nice operation. But once I get a call from the standing MLA or any corporate for that matter, even a single operation, I'll be operating with heart rate of 110, 120. So it's going to get complicated. So sometimes I just took my mobile away and keep it long away unless that operation get smoothly done. So I think these autonomic symptoms will generally get signal easily rather than going for gross things like all this pain and all. If you just observe for heart rate, your respiration, visual can tell much more in detail about respiration. But what I am getting is tachycardia. My heart rate really is racing at that time.
नाही पण काय होतं डॉक्टर सचिन, सी you are probably talking about where my residual anxiety at a very close to my absorption capacity. See, here we are talking about cases where it is very low. म्हणजे अशी थोडीशी anxiety आहे अशी मला, you know, not so high that it is showing in all this way of respiratory and all that thing. So what that I manage by more action. इकडे तिकडे मी जातो, चालतो. I am talking about those urges which psychologists talk about when the difference between the absorption capacity and that residual anxiety is high. असं. म्हणजे हे थोडंसं मला डिस्टिंक्शन क्लिअर करायचं होतं. What you are saying is बापरे, म्हणजे I can imagine that phone coming and you are now operating and that must be really threatening. I mean, you are actually doing something. It is very high level of anxiety. Yeah, very high level of anxiety.
So we call it a VIP syndrome in our hospital. Whenever a patient is VIP, we get that doctors get VIP syndrome.
Yeah.
They have to operate in that stress. But with the anxiety which you are saying, like simple anxieties, like if I've given appointment for a patient at 8 p.m. And it's 8:10 and I know that 9 o'clock I'm having a lecture. I have to reach by 8:30. I have to finish my OPD. I'll start tapping the table.
अच्छा
की
अच्छा.
आता कधी येणार पेशंट, म्हणजे असं
हा, बरोबर
ती
बरोबर
आली पाहिजे ना, पुढची येईल, मग ती पण लेट होईल, मग ते
बरोबर.
कॅल्क्युलेशन ज्या असतात तर, म्हणजे आता मी जस्ट विचार केला की हा म्हणून मी ते टॅप करते तो, पण ते
ओके.
इतकं इनव्हॉलंटरी असतं माझं ते टेबल
या
असं
या
टॅप
या.
करत.
येस येस
तर
येस.
बऱ्याचदा म्हणजे स्वप्नील पण म्हणतो की तू विचार करत असते ना काहीतरी, तेव्हा तुझं टेबल टॅप करायला सुरू
Yeah,
करतो.
correct. Like Sonali was telling me before yesterday, like her feet constantly starts moving whenever she is, anxious. So, everyone has a different. Like what I'm saying, Dr. Sachin, here you are probably talking about a very high level of fear, and what we are talking about is a low level of anxiety, and which then keeps on increasing during the day by different events, episodic events. ते कमी जास्त होत राहतं ते. सो लाईक आय सडनली गेट अ कॉल की अरे हा आला नाहीये घरी मुलगा 6 वाजता. सडनली माय अँझायटी विल इन्क्रीज बिकॉज कसं काय नाही आलाय, मग तू याला फोन केलास का, हॅव यू डन दिस, हॅव यू डन दॅट, शॅल आय कम देअर, ऑल द whole thing until you get, and until he comes till 6:30, from 6 to 6:30 you're off completely. So those kind of anxiety events I'm talking about here. Okay, so let us look at step 2 now. If you look at this graph, you will understand how do we regulate our anxiety. We don't have to go elsewhere to understand it. For example, on this graph there is an event, and this graph y-axis it is controllable and uncontrollable. So let us look at this axis, okay, which means what? Let me get more information to manage my anxiety. Okay, so what information? About the recurring events which happen in your life, about the recurring events which happen with your child. One-time events like COVID will require a different treatment. Then make future predictable by knowing causes. I will talk about this DNE. Okay, so for example, and what they say is this gives you a sense of control, not actual control. Okay. What I mean is, for example, if you look at these normal recurring events, maid information, tire burst, office going in time, managing boss, these are, you will start predicting this and start managing them also properly, slowly. Like many people I know, maids manage कसा करतात ते, they have 2 maids. एक झाडायला आणि एक प्यायला. So one doesn't come, the other comes. Everyone has got different policy to manage their maids. So that unpredictability of maids. The tire burst, tire change, we manage it again. Some men go to the extent of knowing how to change the tires. Some men do not take that म्हणजे तेवढा त्रास घेत नाहीत ते. And some office going to the office at a particular time, how to break the traffic conundrum, and how to reach the office even when you start late. We form some patterns, we form some ideas, and we start doing it. So these are normal recurring event of yours, and we should always remember that until you find solutions, ask them की घडी घडी विचारा की काय तू कशी करते का मॅनेज हे, तू कसं करते रे मॅनेज हे, how do you manage your boss? Then I will tell you my trick, then you will tell me your trick, and then I will say acha, let me use Sachin's trick now, and you will also use my trick. So these events are, this is how we do it most of the times, you see, and therefore be aware that someone has tackled this problem. The same event, same rule we can apply to normal recurring events with your child, which means homework problem, dress घालतच नाही, सकाळी उठतच नाही, getting in the morning problem, मोबाइल दिया तो देता ही नहीं वापस, या मोबाइल के सिवा खाना ही नहीं खाता है, या कार्टून प्रॉब्लम, until he sees a 15 minutes cartoon in the night he will not sleep, playing problem in the evening, when he goes to the for play at 5 o'clock, बोल के थक जाता हूं मैं, तो भी वो आता नहीं है 7 बजे तक. So all these are very normal problems which occur in your life, my life, everyone's life. So I'm calling them recurring events, and like I said in homework problem, and we are repeating that homework problem in many different ways. And now we are slightly understanding your homework problem can be tackled in different ways. So learn to ask. I'm saying learn to ask, learn to get it to the depth of each of them, and we'll find ways of doing it. The more we find ways of doing it, the more we feel we can control it. And the more we feel we can control it, more the, what is the word? Less the anxiety we'll have to manage it. Okay. This one-time events require some, like heart attacks, like cancer. Cancer means, for example, my brother-in-law had a cancer. So I had to understand everything about that lung cancer for a long period of time, for 6 months, to understand what can be done and what cannot be done. So what is within my control and what is outside my control. And at such, our COVID cure, you must be realizing ki, what we thought was curing COVID and what we think now, in 2 years, everything has changed. So the only way to handle this, these kind of events is by asking experts. And they will help you sort out information from data, they call it, Data खूप असतो. Google वर you will get a lot of data about COVID and a lot of data about heart attack. But to be able to help your father or friend to deal with that heart attack, you require information. So you require some help from experts, some friends who can help you ask those questions. Okay. And now here is a smart approach. I don't know whether we should call that approach right or wrong, but we use this approach, therefore I have written it. We reduce event predictability by avoiding conflicting information. Mata, conflicting information, how to avoid? So we avoided finding friends who are like us. So stop listening to others. Because if we listen, we have to find different ways to resolve the conflicts. See the tricky way of doing it. Always follow majority view. Send your children to the most popular school in Nasik, you will not have any problem. Why? Because everyone, my all friends are school, everyone is going there. So everyone is in the same bus. So I reduce my predictability of the event by following majorities. I'm not saying this is right or wrong. I'm saying this reduces our anxiety. So, and we use this. We use these methods very, very, choose mainstream disciplines. Tuza mulga jasa apan parva we are discussing na Madhura, your child wants to do cricket, but cricket is a very tricky discipline, boss. So slowly force him to choose mainstream discipline like engineering, medicine. That is okay, boss. That is okay. And the majority view hai tu. So then anxiety tuji kami hoil and teji kami hoil.
Right.
So here the key is to ask relevant and contextual questions. Now this is a very interesting way to get information about how can I control my future. So what do we do here? We use a beautiful resource called self-help books. This self-help book, I don't know whether you are aware, it is a $30 to $50 billion industry, which feeds on this, on our need of getting information. What causes success? Boss, if you have a passion, you will succeed. If you have a goal, you will succeed. Boss, we are very happy because we want some certainty in our life. So they promise recipes of success that are easier to understand. Like goals are required to succeed. They are required. And but we forget that they work only for people who can set goals early in their life, like sports people and music people, because they are using motor skills. And because motor skills develop early in life, they can set goal early in life. And because they set early in life, they achieve something in life. But ये लोग अपने को बताते नहीं है सेल्फ हेल्प बुक वाले. वो क्या बोलते हैं कि गोल सेट करो. And they will give you all examples of sportsman and musician and one. And we get confused because apne people like us who are doctors and engineers and software and this field, we set our goals very late in life. For us, this method is not useful. But the problem is, we still want some direction. So we use this direction. Passion is good, being positive is good, big networking is good. Why? Because it reduces our anxiety. So the best way is to appreciate that residual anxiety cannot be reduced any further. We cannot find out why someone succeeds and why someone fails by looking at these cases. The next help we take is, अरे बाप रे, और भी ज़्यादा anxiety. Astrology. It helps us find control of my unpredictable future. This also is a very huge industry. Very huge industry. I used to believe that this industry only runs in India, but I was completely wrong. Completely wrong. This industry is as strong and as powerful as in US and Europe and other places. Except they have given it very different names to it. They call it diamond rings, hazel pendants, what a very odd name I had heard once.
Numerology is also there.
Numerology, pentagon rings, and they promise all that. And again, I keep on saying this, use it consciously when residual anxiety is too large. So earlier I used to say that astrology is all bunkam, astrology is all not useful. But believe me, it is very useful when your residual anxiety in your life because of certain situation in your life is very high. If it is very high, then I nowadays straight away suggest use astrology. Because the anxiety levels are too high, keep it. It helps you keep it low, but use it consciously. Don't. Some loco kartat na, when what people do is use that Dagadora and believe that nothing will happen in their life. Don't do that. But you say, अच्छा मेरे life में ऐसे period difficult आने वाला था, ये मुझे पता चला, and now I have understood that difficult period is going to go after 6 months. I feel better. My anxiety levels are in control. So if you are in that one of those zones where your anxiety is very high, use it. Don't worry about what people will say and what someone will laugh at you. Okay. Any comment on this? Because this is slightly controversial, no? Okay. So second is like we talked about step 2 about getting more information. Now step 2 about is getting more control. Step 3 is about getting more control. So we are going to talk about how to increase our control. So if you believe, we all of us have a circle of influence and a circle of control. Maid not coming, homework of child not happening, boss management is not being done. If you believe that this is beyond my circle of control, your uncontrollable residual anxiety is very low. This is a good part of it. Like they say, if you know that I can influence my boss, but I cannot control it. I can influence my child, but I cannot control it. I can influence my maid, but I cannot control it 100%. So I can keep my residual anxiety at a low level. But if you believe that your circle of control is very large, like this, so you can control all these things in life, then your residual anxiety is very, very high because you are trying to control everything in life. So this is a very funny part of it. Unfortunately, this is promoted by self-help books, and we fall in the trap because self-help books tell you, ये सगळं आपल्या हातात आहे, तुम्हारे मानने पर ही है.
Can you show that previous photo?
हा का?
Sir, ह्याच्या आधीचा, हा.
Here we are saying circle of control is very small and influence is very high. So this is all in my influence, but not in my control.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. And here we are saying, I can control that, boss. Many self-help books directly tell you it is all in your hands. Your life is in your hands. Directly म्हणतात ते म्हणजे. So, which is bangam, which is not true at all. But that is how they sell it. म्हणजे त्याला काय करणार ना आता. So, now this is where our parents also fall in this trap a lot, If they start believing that they can control the child completely, they can control the child's friends, child's homework, child's language, child's academic growth, child's success, child's everything, then you are in a big soup, because your residual anxiety will always be very high. Then even when he comes in the evening and tells you, Mama mala 24 plus 42 yet nahi, you will become very, very anxious. Because you are yourself wanting to control everything now. And you will want to do something. And therefore we will, behave like Malini, that case of Malini in the first year. And which otherwise in a normal life we would normally avoid this, म्हणजे आपल्या नॉर्मल याच्यामध्ये आपण लगेच समजून जातोय. You will immediately say, ऐसा होता है क्या यार? But surprisingly, I'm saying woman, I'm saying why? Because again, I feel that is a cultural issue. Because if your child is not doing properly, it is woman's problem. It is woman's not putting her attention at the house. It is her responsibility. तिचे संस्कार, तिचं X आणि तिचं Y, हे सगळं आपल्यावर बिंबवलं गेलंय खूप. So probably the circle of control is becoming large in women's life also because of all this cultural influence. And men don't have this problem. Because for the same reason, And this becomes a real problem now. Because your job, you are operating at such a high level of anxiety कि उसको थोड़ा सा भी नहीं आता है ना, तो you get more stressed than your child. So this becomes a problem because child then senses your anxiety. Child then starts seeing it in your way of dealing with him, the way of taking your homework, the way of telling him that you should get every sum right, everything right. So हे दिसतं त्याला आपल्या बॉडीतनं, आपल्या भाषेतनं, आपल्या what is the word? Different behavior madna. Or they fall in one of the, what we call it, two traps, control traps. Superman trap. So like Superman, they want to control everything in our life. So it is so such people, and I've seen this in not only women, men and women both. They want to control everything and everyone around them. They are also called as benevolent dictators. They take extra responsibility for everything. Especially men do this. And I've seen many houses where no one can say a word against the father because they take full responsibility of their child. Full means अक्षरशः full. त्याला मुलगा नाही झाला आणि त्याला हे नाही झालं आणि त्याची बायको बरोबर नाही, and they all responsibilities that man's responsibility. And they fall therefore in the vicious cycle, which we talked about. The more they want to control, the more they want to residual anxiety increases. And this therefore anxiety, they are always constantly living at this high level of anxiety. You will find them in companies, in politics and families too, such people, Superman people. Have you met anyone like that? I have met many people like this. And I have met most of them in companies, who believe that they can control anything in companies because they are owning the company, they are entrepreneurs. Mostly they are entrepreneurs, yes, I should add to that. And therefore, when something is not happening according to their so-called anticipated consequences, then they are very, very irritable, very angry, very hyper, very anxious. They can't sleep properly. They can't take their holidays properly. They can't even go to 8 days holidays and be free from that job. It is an anxiety trap, a control trap we call it. Surprisingly, there is a reverse trap of this. It is called a super savior trap. They find saviors who can control all the situations for them, such as political leaders or, I didn't write that. Religious leaders are one of the best saviors we find. And that's why you must be finding a lot of people now, and you must be wondering why are so many people falling in this Asaram Bapu or X or Y or Z. And now you go and ask, I mean, every other person you will find is a part of X group or Y group or Z group. Because this group helps them find a savior. They start believing that this person can completely मेरे life की पूरी certainty ये manage करेगा, uncertainty. Nothing can go wrong with me now if I believe this person. So they blindly believe in this super saviors. Like many of them blindly believed in Assam Bapu, And like one of my friend was there. He's an engineer who passed COP for me. He was a huge believer of Asaram Bapu. And when this event happened, I thought, I told him, what are you feeling? You know what was his reply? Sanjeev, you don't know what is politics. मुझे समझा ही नहीं वो क्या बोल रहा है. तो मैंने बोला मीनिंग नहीं ये सब पॉलिटिक्स उसका जो ग्रुप है ना उसके अगेंस्ट जो ग्रुप है ना उन्होंने ये सब निकाला है. He's not like that. So see the amount of beliefs and values they have invested in these people.
Confirmation bias.
हाँ बरोबर ज्याला आपण कन्फर्मेशन बायस म्हणतो की इतकं असतं ब्लाइंड असतं ते की even when you see the data, he's an engineer, not a person like, I mean, who doesn't understand these things. But I mean, even now,
instead of data, Asaram Bapu himself confessing everything on the camera. Yeah.
Completely. I mean, it is now very open secret. Ki everything happened like that. But if you ask,
I had read a study and it was a common finding. The study was done in the US that when people are, especially with religious and these things, when people are confronted with their religious ideals getting debunked or whatever, their belief actually increases.
Yeah, you're right.
So that I guess, you you saw a real life example of that.
Yeah, we saw, I mean, in last 2-3 years, we are seeing real life examples in India a lot like this because so many people are getting caught like that, But people don't change, म्हणजे तुम्ही त्या माणसांना जाऊन भेटला ना, if you go and meet them, they say, नहीं वो कुछ फेंक रहा है वो, तुझको पता नहीं है, तेरे को पता नहीं है, तू संजय बहुत सादा आदमी है, तेरे को समझता नहीं है.
And they are not few in numbers. There is an entire rally of Asaram Bapu happening in Nasik. I mean, it's an entire rally of hundreds of people.
So this super savior trap, Superman trap is a very, very beautiful example of controlling anxiety, regulating anxiety. And last is naturally the best one. We know if absorption capacity agar बढ़ा दिया, so all my problems are solved. So why not increase the absorption capacity? So therefore there are a lot of theories of increasing absorption capacity. What are the options? And you know many of them. Use relationships to validate anxiety. Another is intellectual route to find that events outcomes are not in our control. Like I did. I used this intellectual route because I am a system. I went into system thinking. System thinking taught me that events and outcomes are not in my control, and that increased my absorption capacity. I didn't go the religious route. There is a route called happiness route. I don't know whether you have heard this. There's a lady called, professor called Laura Sintas in Yale University who runs a course called Happiness course. And she says, you forget about this anxiety, you forget about these negative emotions of anxiety, inadequacy, jealousy, X, Y, Z. Instead, focus on your happiness. Understand what will make you happy. And she has very beautifully, what is the word? Broken this concept of happiness into very, very meaningful idea of what is happiness to us. And it is happiness is not just having good food and listening to nice music and being with friends. हे सगळे तिने छान define केलेत. Very beautifully she has defined. And this course is free, by the way. Go to coursera.org and type Laura Santos course and you will be able to attend this course. It's a very, very good course because it helps you debunk your ideas of happiness. Very beautiful. So this is one very alternate route of increasing your absorption capacity. Meditation route is obviously the best route because it is in your control. And religious route, spiritual route, to understand that outcomes even happen in life are not in our control. Like Bhagavad Gita, आपण म्हणतो ना कर्मणे अधिकार असते. Absorption capacity increases a lot when we come to know that outcomes are not in my control. And to give you an example, a sportsman, you use this a lot now. Do you know who is this person? You may not be knowing because if you are not a cricketer. He was one of the best South African cricketers for 5 long years, where he topped averages of test and one day. His name is Amla. He's a Muslim, and he was asked by his coach once. He went to a practice of, he used to go to that, Muslim लोक जातात ना ते spiritual practice करायला, and he was asked one day by his coach. This is written in that book of Barefoot, Coach by Paddy Upton. And he was asked by his coach, ki, Amla, what do you want to do in life? Do you want to be a spiritual leader or do you want to become a cricketer? So he upfront told that coach, I would rather prefer to become a spiritual leader. He was a firmly rooted in spirituality. And he completely owed his huge success in cricket to spirituality. And sportsmen now use a lot of meditation practices and spiritual practice to increase their absorption capacity because they need it very bad. Unlike us, whose one-day performance, in our life doesn't matter too much. Their one-day performance can make or break their lives. So for them, they need something to increase their absorption capacity and being able to perform despite, जैसा Sachin sir म्हणत होते ना, Dr. Sachin, you said, when you get a call and you are at such a high level of anxiety because now you don't want to fail. Imagine the sportsman also has to do this and undergoes this. It is not as bad as your case because it is here it is a case of survival and death. Here it is, but for a sportsman, it is a case of his survival and death because if he doesn't perform in that sport, despite practicing for 10 long years, then he is failing in his life. So पूरा 10 साल के practice का मतलब एक दिन में दिखता है. And he has to therefore be at a very different level of managing his anxiety. And therefore, if we want to learn how to manage our anxiety, we should really look at sportsmen. They will teach us better than any other emotional guru. And therefore, I last time also I told you, read these books. They give us better ideas of how to manage our anxieties than even a book of emotions. And so the last slide will be how to manage your child's anxiety. Luckily, your anxiety of child flares only after he understands the concept of time, which is after age 8. His secondary anxiety वगैरह त्याला होत नाही. They primarily encounter primary anxiety. And what is that primary anxiety? Whenever they are doing the new thing, they are facing that. So that academic anxiety they are managing, they are facing, encountering. And the other anxiety which I encounter is strangers, new places, which I told you this happens in few cases, but it is observed in lot of small children. But the problem is they encounter anxiety with inadequacy. ये उसका प्रॉब्लम है सबसे बड़ा छोटे बच्चों का कि they don't experience anxiety alone. They experience anxiety and inadequacy together because they are trying to learn something. So because they are trying to learn something, and when आता कसं होतं ते cycle होऊन जाते. कशी होते? For example, I can't do like ABCD. I don't want to do it. So I feel inadequate first of all. Yesterday because I had failed, So next day I come to the school and now I can't sit there because I'm very anxious. Why I'm anxious? Because I knew yesterday I failed. So inadequacy and anxiety are going together in a child. This is the most, काय म्हणायचं त्याला? What is the word we use in the dynamite मध्ये काय असतं? त्या दोन गोष्टी टाकतात. It makes a dynamite. The two gelatin plus something makes a dynamite, no? तसं हे होतं है. कि anxiety alone would have tackled our child, but because it is combined with inadequacy, that becomes a big problem, a bomb. But all this can be tackled very easily by mirroring primary anxiety. This is a good part of it. Good positive side of the story. We can tackle our child's anxiety by mirroring it, constantly telling there is nothing to fear, constantly telling there is nothing to. If you fail, it's okay. I mean, there's nothing. The earth is not going to fall down if you are going to fall. If you just tell this and you stop, you help him not to fear his fear, not to fear his fear of failing, the problem is tackled. बस इतका सिंपल प्रॉब्लेम आहे आपल्या मुलाचा. आपला नाही येतो, आपला थोडासा डीप झालेला आहे. But for our child, the problem is simple until now. So my suggestion is just do not worry about his academic performance at this age at all. I know I'm making a big suggestion here because parents feel that अगर उसको नहीं आ रहा है ABCD, अगर उसको नहीं आ रहा है 1 to 10, तो फिर क्या आएगा उसको दुनिया में, जिंदगी में क्या आएगा? तो my fervent suggestion to you is कि this is your anxiety which is making you feel that he will not be able to do anything. Just try to regulate your anxiety. Just deal with his primary anxiety. Once he stops fearing his fear, his academic performance will automatically improve. Because you are tackling the root cause of the problem. So let us take 3 cases. Okay. X is a man. He's stuck in a traffic. He's 15 minutes away from his office. But looking at the traffic, he realizes that he will be late to the office. Y man is also going to his office. He is also 15 minutes late. But he feels he has a chance of reaching in time to the office. Who is more stressful, X or Y?
Why?
Why? Why? Why?
Because there is a traffic that is uncontrollable and still he wants to reach, which is like kind of impossible. So
Yeah, but why not X?
Yeah,
X
I
has
also think
accepted
why.
that he'll be late. So it's okay, he'll be late. Not an issue.
Beautiful. That means
Yeah,
what?
why has hope?
Correct. Why has a uncertainty element still operating,
Yeah.
X is certain कि वो तो पहुंचने वाला ही नहीं है.
So it's okay, late हो गया तो हो ही गया.
Correct. So, but why का uncertainty quotient अभी भी है high, and therefore why is more stressful? See the beautiful dynamics of anxiety. Anxiety is high when we are uncertain. Even when the certainty is bad, we want certainty. म्हणजे असं तुम्हाला डॉक्टरना फार होत असेल बघा. You must be facing a lot. की when a person says की I have a cancer, I mean, I'm feeling bad, but at least until now, I was not knowing what is happening to me. That was more worse than knowing that I'm cancer. So in fact, there are various studies done in medicine field only to prove this point. People want to know, even if the information is bad for them, they want to know that information rather than being kept hanging like this.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So paradox, anxiety is highest when we are close to our goal, Your son comes back at 5 p.m. from his class. But when it did not return at 5 p.m., you called on his mobile. It was not picked. You kept on calling for another 10 minutes. Then you called his friend. No one was picking. Now your son comes after all this, and this episode happens. How will you talk with whom when he comes late? With him, how will you talk?
Be very angry, and we would be signaling our emotions of
Correct.
anxiety ki, because
Correct.
you would have imagined असं झालं असेल, लेट झालं, ऍक्सिडेंट झाला, गाडी पडली, तू पडला, whatever.
Correct. And you have made me go through this entire anxiety because you didn't call, you
That
didn't pick.
anger.
Yeah.
Yes, we didn't inform.
And many times I've seen this. I don't know whether you observed this. You go to Pramod Mahajan garden or any garden. म्हणजे तो त्या मुलाला काहीतरी पडतो तो असा.
English.
Sorry, he falls down, something like that, from that काय म्हणतात त्याला, from the staircase, and he's going like that. So before आपण त्याला हे करायला लागतो, त्याचं बघायला लागतो कुठे पडलाय वगैरे. आणि इफ यू फील की काही लागलेलं नाही त्याला, वी स्ट्रेट अवे स्टार्ट फायरिंग हिम. तुला सांगितलं होतं मी तिथे जायचं नव्हतं, तुला सांगितलं होतं मी तुला हे करायचं नव्हतं. Because that whole anxiety is operating at such a level that we म्हणजे instead of calming him down, instead of relating to his pain of falling down or all that, we shout because he has not listened to our instructions and therefore he has fallen, is what we feel. This is an interesting case. Your friend has started driving recently. You are sitting beside in his car. Who is more anxious, you or your friend?
So we are more anxious sitting next to him.
Yeah.
Yes.
We are more anxious, na?
Because car is not under our control.
बरोबर सर, अगदी बरोबर बोलला. कार आपल्या हातात असते तर आपण एवढे anxious. And now relate this event to you and the child. Who has more anxiety?
Yeah, by this logic, child should have.
No. By this logic, parent has more anxiety.
Parent has more anxiety.
Oh, from that perspective. Okay. I was thinking from the perspective that we control a lot of things for him and they are not in his control.
Oh, acha. Okay.
And, but yeah, it's a different angle. की कुठल्या क्लासला घालायचं किंवा कुठल्या शाळेत घालायचं, child as such.
So this is a big child is living his life, but we are more anxious about how will he live life, उसका कैसा होगा बड़े होने के बाद. अरे उसको इंग्लिश भी नहीं आ रहा है, मेरे को भी इंग्लिश नहीं आता था. What is the problem now? यार ये तो बड़ा प्रॉब्लम हो रहा है. He is going to face the same problem which I faced, and on and on and on. That is all because I am not sitting in the driver's seat. No, he is sitting in the driver's seat. So this is one very curious thing which happens. The person who is not sitting in the driving seat always has more anxiety than the person who is sitting in the driving seat. These coaches talk a lot about it, in the sports. Coaches have more anxiety than the sportsmen, because coaches can only sit in the dugout and watch him fail or perform. He can't do anything about it. So here also I would like to share my experience and I've been struggling with this understanding of why people succeed or fail in life from 1996. And I've taken jobs. In 2001, I left the job. Then 2006, I wrote a book. 2007, I again started the job with TCS. 2012, again, I left the job. 2012 to 18, we and Mahesh are trying to do things. So between me and my wife, who is facing more anxiety?
Ma'am.
And this is a very, and the person who faces that anxiety more, she faces more anxiety because nothing is in her control. You know, at least I get busy in doing this. I have been struggling from last 25 years in trying to understand this. So I'm actively thinking about it, engaging it to get more control of the event, you know, more information about child psychology, more experience about and talking to people. So every day I feel I'm going one step closer to my goal. But the other person has no feeling. She's, you know, she's sitting on the sidelines out of the stadium and cannot control anything. And these people face huge amount of anxiety, which a person like actor like me, because I'm in the ground, I cannot understand. I'm relating this event to Madhura, your child also. If your child also starts saying, I want to play cricket, you are going to be exactly in a position what my wife is today.
Very true.
Huge amount of anxiety, and you have to do something to manage it. Because if you don't, then everything gets problematic. Like she is unable to understand, she is unable to support me, she is unable to empathize with me. You know why? Because the anxiety has been so high and for so long, for 25 years, that it is impossible for the other person, for you to see what your child is doing and believe that something good will happen after that. Sitting outside in the stadium, I am telling you this example because I feel this is exactly what is happening with you and your child also.
Yes.
And you try to control the child's future and you feel you can control it. That is the funny part of it. Actually, you can't do really anything in that sense, you can
That's
enable.
what my husband says, ki it's okay. If he wants to play cricket, let him play cricket. Whatever he wants to do, we let him do. But he's not taking the part of responsibility or what will happen.
What will correct?
Yeah, how many boys are playing cricket in our country, in our state? What is the percentage of selection, and where are we heading? Is it possible? Are we that much dedicated?
Yeah.
As parents also, we have to be that much dedicated.
Yeah. No, not only that, you will also have to have plan A, plan B, plan C. Suppose it doesn't go and play at the highest level, what will we do? What is a plan B? What is a plan C? For example, we have been talking about a lot of things of sports today. We know that sports teaches child to manage his anxiety, which is a huge amount of skill. A skill which he can use anywhere in life. But you have to start thinking like that. No, that is a plan B.
Right.
You have to start understanding, sports may not give the sport trophy for him, may not give, because the outcome is not in your hand and his hand also. Outcome is in a lot of the system's hand. But there are a lot of things which is in his hand and your hand. Those can be controlled. That is a circle of influence. Those can be influenced and those can be learned. And those can be used in some other places, other domain, other areas. May not be in sports because he did not get the chance he deserved.
So we need to have a bigger circle of control, na, sir?
No, circle of influence we should always say, because you still can't control it. है ना, तू for example, let us say you did a lot of things to help him increase his absorption capacity to manage that, anxiety. You did a lot of things, but he did not pick up a lot of things of them for whatever reason. See, I mean, because you and me are different people, no, ultimately.
Yes.
So you tried to help me a lot, but I did not get everything you gave me to help. So whatever I will pick, I will learn, I will use it. But because you, as a child, you relied on me, you trusted me, you made me what you are, I will not only survive, I will do whatever has to be done given a particular situation. है ना, आपण असं आउटकम बिटकम मध्ये बघत नाही ना ते असं,
बरोबर
आहे की नाही, म्हणजे so it's a I wanted to give you a bigger picture of anxiety, vis-a-vis your child.
right, sir.
So you and me are going to face these anxiety issues so much in our life. You are a doctor, you are facing it every day. You're reacting because of that every day. I am reacting because of that every day, creating more problems for myself and in my relationships, in my encounters with people. That is fine. I mean, yes.
Circle of control खूपच मस्त होतं सर, खूपच मस्त.
It's a very good concept to use to remember ourselves. Ki where are we vis-a-vis our child?
We try to control, as a mother, we try to control so many things, so many minor things. It is not needed actually.
Yeah, it is not needed. No, see, like I salute you women, all of you, Madhura and Trupti, and every one of you, Kranti, everyone, Anjali, because I think you have been brought up in this culture where we men, I have tried to tell you it is your responsibility, it is your problem, it is your, everything yours. म्हणजे जर चांगलं झालं तर नाही, मग मी पण केलंय. पण if something goes wrong, then it is you have made the child bad. असं आपण इतक्या, so many different languages we tell our women, that you naturally imbibe it. घेऊन घेता तुम्ही ती belief. Unknowingly, I mean, not knowingly. And then you spend all your life fighting that belief. I mean, living that belief, rather fighting it, Even while fighting it also, you don't know how to fight it. म्हणजे कसं म्हणायचं की माझ्या मुलाची माझ्या काळजी नाही असं म्हणायचं. But I think that is a belief which has been laid on you, culture ने तुमच्या अंगावर टाकलंय. It is difficult, Vasundhara and everyone I know, when they talk about their children, Snehal and Anjali's तो फारच आहे. क्रांतीचं माहित नाही मला, क्रांती manages it better, I think. Like she was saying last time, I started understanding I have my own life, which is a very good way of saying it.
I think everybody has to share.
Yeah, everybody has to share. Correct. Hemlata, they don't talk, but I know they are hearing. Devani, Dipali Patil. Ruchi Chavan आहे का? Sir, उज्ज्वल sir, काय ऐकतायत का?
नाही, ते दोघे गेले.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's 11:17.
Yeah, we'll stop now.
So just quick feedback or quick questions and then.
Yeah.
On this control thing, I wanted to share something I had read quickly. So there is this concept of dichotomy of control. It comes from a branch of philosophy called Stoicism. बरीच जुनी फिलॉसॉफी आहे ती, पण आय थॉट दॅट वॉज व्हेरी